I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we have this place rigged for self-defense, because this week we listened to Phantasmagoria.
Written by Mark Gatiss.
Directed by Nicholas Briggs.
And Mark Gatiss and Nicholas Briggs, and released on October 4th, 1999. Just in time for Halloween. I don't know why this would be a Halloween episode, or a story. Yeah, get ready for that is, the slip of watched an episode, but I don't know why this would be a Halloween story, but it kind of feels like one.
Yeah, a little bit. It's spooky. There's things going on that we don't know about.
It has a reddish orange cover, It's sort of Halloween looking. I mean, except for playing cards, those aren't really Halloween imagery, but that's fine. Mark Strickson has a nice crop of red hair, or orange, so getting in those Halloween colors.
Yeah, is Mark Strickson's actual hair orange, or did they no, okay, he's blonde.
Oh, what? I thought, but on the show he does have red hair, kind of.
They must have dyed it, because if you go to his page on the TARDIS wiki, his hair is blonde.
Man, it's like a reddish. It has a reddish tint to it, kind of.
What?
I'm looking on Google Images, and it has. Yeah. I think when he was younger, it was a little more red. Yeah, now it is. Yeah, now it's basically just blonde.
Maybe it was just the crappy TV cameras, because some of these pictures from the show, it looks pretty blonde too.
Yeah, that is true. But it's I remember when we were watching it, he looked like a redhead, as we watched through the show. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not as blonde as Peter Davison, that's for certain.
No, definitely. Yeah, maybe that was why. We were on the show, we were watching him next to Davison pretty much the entire time. So we were, in comparison, he looked not as blonde, if you know what I mean. It's like that optical illusion where, if you put two colors that are the same color together, I think this only works on screens, I'm not sure, but if you put two colors that are exactly the same together and, put your finger in between, they look different. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah, kind of.
You put two blocks of color that are exactly the same, near each other, and you block out the dividing line or the dividing color between them, and they look different. I'll see if I can put an example in the show notes. Whatever, it doesn't matter. What does matter here is Phantasmagoria, an audio that we've actually already listened to. But that's fine. As I was listening through this audio, I was expecting that I would remember it at some point, that my memory would jog and I would just be now I remember everything, and I'm going to not pay attention because I remember everything, and I'm going to find it boring, whatever, but no, I actually didn't remember anything.
Yeah, I didn't remember anything either.
Yeah, it was
honestly.
It was almost remarkable how much I just, carved this out of my memory, just removed it.
Well, it's hard to remember audios, even though we recorded a whole episode on it. It's it's difficult to remember the whole thing. It's just because there's no visuals. And I don't know, I kind of had the same thing with books too, although books I remember better than audios, because you actually have to put effort into reading a book to get the content out of it, it's really easy to just listen to an audio passively. I think you remember the audio better if you actually force yourself to imagine visuals with the audio, although that's just a theory, I don't know for certain.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I definitely have books that I forget 2 days after I read them. And I look back years later oh my god, I read that.
Yeah, but you also read a book a week.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah. Yeah, it is true.
You're reading like more books than in like a year than most people read in like their entire life. So
Yeah. Yeah, that is actually sadly true. Not sadly for other people, not me for once.
even me, like I can read pretty quick, but even me, I'm only reading about a book a month. So I'm reading about a book every 4 weeks at the moment. Although that's less because like I don't want to read and more because I just don't have time to read as many books as you because my job doesn't involve writing, so it's less of a priority.
Yeah. Well, you know whose job does involve writing?
Mark Gatiss.
Phantasmagoria.
Oh.
Mark Gatiss. Yes.
Did you say Phantasmagoria as if this was written by Phantasmagoria?
No, it was like whose job involves writing Phantasmagoria. Like this.
Oh, I see.
His job involved writing the story, yeah. Yeah, Mark Gatiss. Back at it again with another, home run. This was a definitely more enjoyable story than last week's was. I think. Set in the glorious year of 1702, included actually in the TARDIS Wiki category, stories set in 1702, the only story to be included in that category. Begging the question, why even make it a category? But this is the TARDIS Wiki we're dealing with.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is the same wiki that has like a page for grapes.
Yeah.
And not real life grapes. It's grapes in the Doctor Who universe.
It also has a page for cricket, which, if I remember correctly, is how this story begins. Oh, no, actually it begins with not our main characters, but it begins with Valentine. Unless you have anything else to say before we jump into it.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, in that case, let's jump into it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, continue with
what
you're saying.
Yeah, in the glorious year of 1702, in sort of it's like they describe it as a club or like a tavern or something. It's the Diabla Club, right?
Yeah, the Diabla Club.
A man named Valentine plays cards. We get the information that the king is dead. It turns out actually to just be more so flavor text than anything. I thought they make such a big deal about it at the beginning, and you're like, this is going to be a major point, but it's actually just setting the stage.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be like critical to the plot of the story, but as it turns out, it's just nothing really.
It's just like it's just to establish the time period, really. Which, like, maybe if you're British, this helps to do that more. But it's like, I don't know, the succession of kings in like the 1700s. I have no idea. Like, just from saying which king died, like, I don't know what time period it's set in. But yeah, this guy Valentine he's pretty sketch. He's pretty suspicious. And then we cut, to the doctor and teaching Turlo how to play cricket. Mark Gatiss remembering.
Well, from a book, he's really just teaching him from a book. He's just essentially just reading the book to him.
Yeah, was he reading from the almanac? Was that what he was reading from?
Yeah, the book that comes back at the end.
God, almanacs are such a weird, such a weird thing. Like, they just a collection of semi-useful, I guess, in like pieces of information. Like, what is the binding like? What is the like? What binds almanacs together? Not in a physical sense of like the glue and the binding of the book, but in like in a metaphorical sense, like. What are they? Are they just like... I just have no idea. I mean... Hang on.
Are you Googling almanac?
I'm Wikipediaing it. My internet is being slow, so hang on. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Firefox is being stupid. It's not pulling up pages. I don't know why it's doing this, but it was doing this before too. Oh, here we go. I mean, this is somewhat important actually because it's like the almanac kind of comes back. According to Wikipedia, an almanac is an annual publication listing a set of current information about one or multiple subjects. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, it's just so broad. Like, you could publish
it's like
anything.
The TARDIS. It's essentially like a published version of the TARDIS wiki. Like, if you published the TARDIS wiki, you would have the Doctor Who almanac.
It's more like the entire fandom.com network because of how, like, because the TARDIS wiki is insane, but at the same time, it does have, like, Doctor Who binding it all together. Like, every page is related to Doctor Who. But from this definition of almanac, it seems as if you could just put anything in there.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you could write an almanac about anything.
It seems to be usually information related to weather, farming, that kind of thing, like sunset and sunrise and celestial charts and all of this. Speaking of, like, I don't know why this is related, but it kind of is. Like, why was this called Phantasmagoria? I think I don't even really know what a Phantasmagoria is. It's like isn't it like a musical piece? Like, it's a type of music, right? Oh no, it was a form of horror theater. Okay, never mind. All right.
It's also a sequence of real or imaginary images like those seen in a dream.
I guess this was kind of dreamlike. It was dreamlike in the sense that, like, it and I actually like this. It's not really a trope, in the TV tropes definition, but I actually like this, like, story element is like they're investigating, like, these supernatural occurrences and murders and all that, but, like, they can still go back to the comfort of their own home at the end of the day. I don't know. There's something appealing about that. And it makes it kind of dreamlike too, where it's like all this stuff is kind of occurring right under people's noses. And has been for decades. Freaking Valentine getting away with it.
Well, 30 years, 3 decades.
Yeah. He would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for that meddling doctor. Anyway, the Doctor and Turlough land in London, and frankly, I don't know, maybe it's just been like a long time since we've gotten historical London as a setting, but I was very into it this time around. I think maybe like the audio, like just the very nature of it being like a soundscape rather than visual, I think made it more, I don't know, appealing. Because, like, when I think of this type of setting, like old school London or, like, you know, British towns or whatever, it's like what comes to mind more for me is like books and kind of just imagining how things were back then. So, you know, that is the thing with audios too, is like when you do sit down and pay attention to it and try to actively listen to it, you know, you kind of, like you said before, you kind of imagine the scenery, kind of build it all in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it does more for you in that sense than than a visual medium. Also, I just hate looking at people, so that's why I tend to gravitate towards books, and audios are perfect for that. So, hey. Well,
I mean, it's interesting talking about the, like, audio soundscape of ancient London, because
sorry, I'm gonna nitpick, but ancient, like, yeah,
being facetious.
No,
here.
Okay, yes, right.
But anyway, my point was going to be that, like, the show itself never really, until the reboot, never really concerned itself with building, like, an accurate soundscape. Yeah, this story reminds me a lot of, like, The Visitation. You know, another Fifth Doctor story set in it was earlier London. Well, earlier London, let's say.
That was
the Visitation is set in the 17th century London, so it's like a little bit before this. This was set like right at the turn of the 17th to 18th century. So kind of a very similar vibe. But like if you think back to the Visitation, I can't remember them ever like trying to build like sort of an accurate soundscape in that episode. So I guess my point was just that it's interesting that like the audios do that a lot more, and maybe for that are more interesting perhaps to listen to, or like more successful, let's say, at building like the atmosphere of where the Doctors supposedly landed.
Yeah, plus you have to think that like these early Big Finish audios, and even the ones now, are like they're made by people from the generation who, if they wanted to record Doctor Who, they had to do so on audio tapes. And so when you listen, and well, so maybe I'm just kind of I am just spitballing here. I'm not sure that Mark Gatiss or anyone involved in this did that, but like if they wanted to, that's what they had to do, type thing. And when you go back and listen to those tapes, probably you're like you're going, man, this like kind of sucks in an audio format. And so when you kind of when you are like if that was you, right, if that was you doing that, mm-hmm. like when you're finally comes time to like, all right, let's make a Doctor Who audio, and let's pay attention to actually making it like decent to listen to as an audio.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot of those very satisfying, I would say, sounds, like the ticking of the clock in the background, and like the sound of their shoes on the wood and all this. So.
Well, that's one thing that I think Big Finish is really good at. Is building those soundscapes, I guess, because so much of the audio depends on that.
Mm-hmm. You have to wonder, like, what are they actually doing to make these sound effects? It's like sometimes it's actually what they're doing, but like I've watched some like behind the scenes videos on like sound design and movies and stuff, and like sometimes what they're actually doing to make sound effects is not at all even close to what it actually is supposed to be. You know what I mean? I can't even think of any examples right now, but I'll try and think of some, maybe, and put some in the show notes. Of course, I'm blanking on the actual episode, but yeah. Anyway, we've been talking for a while, and we're not actually detailing the events, so I think we're introduced to Holywell and Hannah, or Holywell, however you pronounce it.
I think it's Holywell, although I seem to remember it being pronounced both ways.
Mm-hmm. I thought Holywell was going to die. Like, I thought for sure he was going to, be sacrificed or something. But now he makes it through. He makes it out alive. Unlike Hannah. Holywell is like sort of he's like an occult researcher, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Doctor and Turlough like land the TARDIS in his just living room, essentially.
This is like an interesting time period because like people who we now today consider to be like to be scientists from this time period, mm-hmm. also like researched the occult and like magic and stuff like that. You know what I mean? like I don't know if this is true, but this is like the time period of like Newton, but he was like on the side, he was researching like magic circles or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but that's just an example. So what I'm saying is like Holywell, today we think of like an occult researcher as like super fringe and like part of a small number of people, but like maybe he was more respected or something back in the day, or more accepted, or more just like people didn't really care about like this kind of thing back then, or they didn't care about like science at least. So maybe this was in the same boat as people just like, yeah, whatever. Actually, science had barely even existed at the time, so...
I mean, science existed, just not in its modern form.
It wasn't practiced until a bit later, until like 20 or 30 years later. Actually, I don't know why I know this, but like one of the most popular books at the beginning of the 1700s in England was this book called what was it called? It was called like Micro. It was kind of like Phantasmagoria. I think it was called Micrographia, which was basically that was like a book that helped popularize science. Where it's like it was basically just a book about like with illustrations and descriptions of things viewed under not a microscope, a magnifying glass. And it was just like, bro, like, look at these things under a magnifying glass. Like, you can do this too if you have a magnifying glass, which 99% of people didn't have access to. But
I actually own a magnifying glass.
Oh, really?
Funnily enough, yeah.
Well, is that related to you getting a PhD?
No,
it's just okay. All right.
I've actually owned it since I was like 6.
Oh, damn.
I don't even know where I got it from.
All this is to say that Halliwell's he's a very interesting character and like maybe not character wise, but like his role, like his place in all this in society, whatever, or whatever. He also has a maid, I guess, named Hannah, like we mentioned, and her place in society is more so brought up in the story and relevant to it.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that. Did you remember that she was Lovemore? I did not.
No. I didn't remember that. I didn't remember that. We already went over this. I didn't remember anything about this story.
Yeah, I know, but you can just be like, I didn't remember anything except like these two things, you know?
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway, my notes for the beginning of this are like atrocious. Like they just don't detail the events. They're more just like thoughts and reactions.
Yeah, my notes are just like plot points to help me remember the story. So Nicholas Valentine plays cards with Carteret. And Carteret then goes wandering off and, well, we don't know what happens to him until a later part. Mm-hmm. But at the end of part 1, essentially, Ned Cotton shows up at Halliwell's house. Hannah is outside, and he is, like, basically pulling an Alec Freeman here.
Yeah, from UFO. Check out Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast.
Turlough hears what's going on, so he goes outside to save her. So Turlough sees Carteret running down the street being pursued by something, and then Turlough, the doctor, comes out and is like, what's going on out here? And then Turlough's like, doctor, we gotta run, so he runs away, but the doctor's like, no, Turlough, where are you going? Yeah,
Carteret's being pursued by like some shadowy beings, as far as I could tell. That's also the thing with audio, is that like you can kind of just get away with just having these things be obscure and sort of not described or whatever. It's like I could never really get a grasp on what the beings in pursuit of the people like kind of were. That's okay, but yeah, you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. The Doctor and Turlough spend most of the story apart from each other. I think that really works to this story's advantage, perhaps for once. With like, we have like this ensemble cast basically of characters from the 1702 time period, and the Doctor kind of has his companions for the episode, and Turlough has his companions.
Yeah. Turlough decidedly is less successful at solving the mystery than the Doctor.
No, but I liked him, like, just dicking around in 1702 London for a bit. Until he finally gets way in over his head at the end and they just storm the mansion. Not storm, but sneak in. So yeah, that's part one. Basically, was just setting up all the characters. We also get the aliens in part one. Well, we get the aliens, but we don't know they're aliens yet. But we get the aliens that we do know are aliens because of the sound design. They sound like aliens, and in the background of their conversation, which is very cryptic, you don't really know what they're talking about. But in the background, you hear this like sort of, I don't know, electronic, not music, but just ambient noise. Like the not inner workings, but like the machinery of a spaceship or something. And so, of course, this story kind of throws you for a loop because you think, oh, of course Valentine is the villain, so he's working with the aliens, but no. He's working... he's working alone, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because there's two factions at play here, and that's not immediately clear from part one, and maybe isn't even necessarily clear in part two, that there were two different alien factions working here.
Yeah, this is one of those, like, Doctor gets caught up in a pre-existing conflict between alien factions, but it's done with the twist. It's not like a big twist. It's like, oh my god, whoa, like, holy crap. But like, but it is a twist in that like this is set on Earth, so you don't see it coming. Because like most Doctor Who stories that are set on Earth are just like, I don't know, an invasion or something. Mm-hmm. But this one does have the faction wanky elements, but it is set on Earth, and so it uses that as a twist. What was annoying about this, listening to it on Spotify, was that maybe I just didn't notice this last week, but like the Spotify is using the CD tracks right from the CD release of this, but it's like those do not correspond to the parts. Like a part will just start in the middle of a track.
Well, for Sirens of Time, that was only true for two of the parts. It was part 1 to part 2 and part 3 to part 4. The transitions occurred in the middle of the tracks, but you knew what track it was because the track names were like, part 1, section 10 or whatever, / part 2, section 1. But like for Phantasmagoria, that's not true. It's just Phantasmagoria, like section 1, section 2, all the way up to 26. Mm-hmm. This one was also this audio is also like substantially shorter than Sirens of Time. Sirens of Time is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and this one's only an hour and a half long.
I know, they're already facing the Terry Nation effect of like burning themselves out and like, oh shoot. Not really, that's not at all the case. This came out, obviously we talked about the release date or mentioned it, but like this came out months later. So this we talked about this last week too, but like the early Big Finish main range was spread out more. So like the first couple months they didn't do monthly. They just did, like, I guess, whenever they had it ready.
Yeah. But once they hit 2000, they went monthly.
I know. Maybe they were just, like, saving some up for Y2K. Like, I don't know. So, like, people are going to be... The internet's going to go down. People are going to be locked away in bunkers. It's going to be this post-apocalyptic hellscape. Maybe they can just lock themselves away with some Big Finish audios, you know? I honestly wonder how much Big Finish's sales skyrocketed in 2020. With people stuck at home with nothing to do.
Probably a lot. Anyway, part 2. Turlo makes it to the Diabola Club, I believe.
Yeah, he does, and I think like he just stays the night there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Samuel Holywell, tells the Doctor that basically a whole bunch of people have gone missing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we actually, don't we get that at this point? Like, or it might be in a minute, but we get like, it's two guys. I don't remember the names from this story, sorry. It's two guys, and they're going down like the King's Highway, and they're stopped by Billy Lovemore, a notorious highway robber, and he robs them, blind, basically.
And they're very excited to have been robbed by Billy Lovemore.
I know. First, they're kind of flinging insults at him, and they're not happy about this. Obviously, they're cooperating because they don't want to die. But like, as soon as he says his name, they're like, "Oh my god, it's Billy Lovemore!"
They're like, "Oh my god, we're gonna be like making money off this story forever."
I know. This story does like tap into something that like most people don't even think about. I think, which is like gossip and rumor at the time. Now, obviously, nowadays we live in a totally different era of that with the internet. But like at the time, there was also the rumor mill and all this, and like they even talk about it when the Doctor and Turlough are investigating Holywell's house, which he has like Turlough picks up like something and he goes, "Oh, look, a newspaper," and the Doctor's like, "Not exactly. It's more just like a glorified gossip column." And so Billy Lovemore is kind of this urban legend.
Yeah. Classic Billy Lovemore.
And people love him more for that.
Do they, though? Do they?
Seemingly, yeah. Well, meanwhile, the Doctor and Holywell, I think, are talking about the string of disappearances, and they go to the library for some reason, I think to like further investigate.
Yeah. Well, because the Doctor asks if there's a connection between the victims.
Right.
The people who've gone missing, because Holywell has been tracking all the people who've gone missing. And Holywell says, well, they all live within this like one square mile, and the Doctor's like, great. I don't know if that helps us, but great.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep on harping on this, so this will be probably the last thing I say about it. But like another thing the story does that you don't even think about is like it's basically like it's not an in-depth mystery, but this is basically like a detective story, in that they're investigating these string of disappearances, and so like. But they're using the technology of the time, which is like nowadays, if people within 1 square mile of each other, like a bunch of them disappeared, you just know instantly. Like there would be no hiding that. Versus like at this time period, people are like, man, what is the connecting point between these people? Like you just don't know. Like they just don't have the information and the technology to know that. And unless like like what it took to know that was like one guy who was super dedicated and a trip to a library, which is like more effort than anyone else was willing to put in, So it's just, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of crazy to think about like how different the world was. Well, meanwhile, Cotton is getting killed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
Ned Cotton, I think his name was, just reminded me of the fact that I believe it was in the Mutants, that third Doctor story, when they like they had that guy. It was like probably one of the only black characters from that time period, and they named him Cotton. Like just the sort of tone deafness of that. God. I almost hate to laugh at that, but like, god damn, it's pretty funny. So yeah, Cotton gets killed by the shadowy apparitions. The Doctor somehow also discovers I don't know what clues them in to Valentine being suspicious, but they just instantly know. And the Doctor remarks that he always wears gloves.
Yeah. Which is weird. What happens next?
I know this story was kind of hard to follow, and this kind of what I was getting at the beginning. In that, like, it kind of seems like a lot of this was just characters living their daily lives in 1702 London, but there was this big mystery going on in the background, and that to me is like, I like that. But at the same time, it's like you kind of when you are looking at the plot beat to plot beat action, like you look back and are like, wait, what happened? Oh right, they were just eating lunch or something like that. I think that actually is what happens. We go back to Turlough and he's like, that was a great meal. Or whatever. Turlough teams up with Jasper, right? At this point, he meets him at the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jasper, was Jasper one of the guys who got robbed? I honestly couldn't tell.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so he was one of the guys who got robbed. And he basically just teams up with Turlough. He's fully in on this thing. Guess he has nothing better to do. Yeah. Yeah, he hangs out at a pub all day.
I mean, this is exciting, so...
Yeah. The doctor and Hollywell go back to the house and they have a little seance. They decide to call on the spirits of the people who've been disappearing. Because I think we skipped over this, but like Hollywell actually mentioned before that he had been in contact with the spirits of the disappeared people. There have been many cases of vanishments. That was the like term they used, was vanishments. Which is like, it doesn't seem like a real word, but it is.
But it is. Yeah. They start chanting a bunch of gibberish, and part 2 ends.
It seems to be working, though, actually. The doctor was like skeptical, but it seems to be going well.
Well is a relative term.
Well in quotes. When it's over, like, so basically they're put through. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I take it back what I said at the beginning. This is a Halloweenish story, and kind of looking. Sorry to just interrupt what I was saying here, but like, according to the TARDIS wiki, this was recorded in late June of 1999, and they obviously the process of releasing it is more than just recording, but like they waited until October, so maybe there was something to that Halloween vibe. But anyway, what I was saying and why this is kind of Halloween themed is like there's sort of just these like voices, or like these sound effects that are very scary. But once that passes, the doctor says like he heard radio signals in the mix.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think he says that they tapped into the radio signal so that what they said was like transmitted over radio.
Oh, gotcha.
Not that that's like a super important distinction, but...
Meanwhile, Flowers gets captured too.
Yeah, sucks for Flowers.
We're sort of introduced to what Valentine's... You don't know it's a spaceship yet, but like his sort of... The place where he's been putting the people that he captures, which is like... It's sort of... It's like the Axon ship or whatever. Like, it's sort of just this fleshy, like, biomechanical, like cyborg, you know, esque thing. Where it's like, it's these fleshy walls and sort of this...
lovely, delicious.
I know, someone was like, the walls, they're like bloody
meat.
liver. I know, yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah. Just raw, pink and bloody meat, you know?
Okay, we don't need to harp on. We don't need to harp on this.
Cheese grating yourself, just taking a cheese grater to your
stop.
Your arm.
No.
Just tearing yourself into shreds, blood flying everywhere.
Stop.
That would be like something they did on Jackass or something, but just more violent. Like the Pain Olympics or something. Don't look that up, by the way.
No, thank you.
That was like probably one of the I don't know, most formative things I've seen on the internet. Pain Olympics in my early years, but also
yeah, I don't need that. Thanks.
Yeah, they're basically shock videos. Don't look them up. Well, anyway, Jasper, I think, says to Turlo, like, hey man, Flowers has disappeared. Cartwright's dead. Cotton is also frickin' dead. Everyone I know is dying. Meanwhile, I guess the Doctor and Hollywell don't have anything to do but go to the bar, so they do, and they meet Turlo.
Well, they go into the TARDIS first, and Hollywell's like, what the heck? I've walked around the entire exterior, and they're like, yeah, well, surprise. They're scanning for the radio signals, but they can't, they're being encrypted or something. They can't find them. Mm-hmm. So they're going to need to look on foot.
Right. Real quick, how do you like Big Finish's first bigger on the inside moment?
Yeah, it was really lame.
Oh, really? I thought it was lame in how overblown it was. But then I remembered, like, okay, this is their first one doing it, so I'll give it to them.
Just thought it was really lame. Hollywell, wasn't even that excited. He was just like,
I know Hollywell is rather accepting of aliens and sci-fi technology for someone from 1702, which is good, honestly. That endears you to his character even more. So it hits harder when he dies. No, actually, just kidding. He doesn't die.
He doesn't die. He doesn't.
I know, he doesn't die. I just thought he was going to. Yeah, so they go to the Diablo Club, right? They meet up with Turlo, and they're like, hey, the Diablo Club is, really suspicious. Let's go there. And so they do. The Doctor starts playing cards with Valentine. And he draws an ace, foreshadowing his future companion, Ace.
I don't think that's right. That doesn't sound correct.
Does this sound more correct? Ace!
Yeah, that sounds more correct. Yeah, you should have said foreshadowing Ace.
I gotta love the Seventh Doctor. Well, Valentine is obviously suspicious as hell. He's not even trying to hide it. He's just monologuing like a supervillain. Nothing really major happens, though. I think they all just, leave at the end of the night. Turlo and Jasper catch Valentine, leaving in, a little carriage, and they're like, quick, let's follow him.
Yeah, because that's a good
I know,
idea.
what could possibly go wrong? They follow him to his mansion, and that's kind of, they spend the rest of the story, just infiltrating it and getting owned, basically.
Well, the end of part 3 also reveals that Billy Lovemore and Hannah are the same person.
Yeah. And that they're an alien. So they're working with the alien voices that we have been hearing.
And they're not working with Nicholas Valentine. They're actually trying to capture
I know, yeah. So all of this is kind of revealed here. Not explicitly, but implicitly. You're able to piece together what is occurring, basically. Or you're at least able to piece together the factions, essentially.
Right.
Part 4 goes more into detail on what is actually happening.
Yeah, so in part 4, the Doctor and Hollywell are like, so what's going on? Billy Lovemore gives the Doctor a ride back to Holy Wells.
Yeah.
Eventually, Hannah shows up, and the Doctor figures out that Hannah is Billy Lovemore because she forgot to change the boots.
I know, this is sort of a weird, like, low-key way of figuring it out. Usually it would be like, wait a minute, like, you and Billy Lovemore, like, you guys never appear at the same place at the same time. Like, what is going on here? But no, they actually just figure it out because of her boots.
Yeah, whoops. She then, because she's been found out, reveals everything to the Doctor, essentially.
Right. The fact that she's an alien, the fact that Valentine's real name was, hang on, I wrote it down. It was like Karthok of Daedalus or something like that. Well, I guess the TARDIS Wiki probably has it, so I'll just check there.
Wait, who are we looking for? Sorry.
Nicholas Valentine's real name. I don't remember exactly what it was. Oh yeah, it was Karthok of Daedalus or something. However you pronounce that. He's basically like a mass murderer and an escaped criminal who killed her parents.
Yeah.
He's been stranded on Earth for like the past 30 years.
Yeah, his ship crashed.
Mm-hmm. You don't find this out until basically the very end, but like at this point it's pretty obvious that he's using the kidnapped people as fuel for his ship.
Yeah, he's specifically using their minds to power the ship.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, they decide to go after him. They go to his house. Turlo and Jasper are like already there, kind of sneaking in. I think they get caught.
They immediately get caught, because they're great at this. And Valentine's like, I'm going to use you to fix my ship. And they're like, what? And the Doctor shows up, and Valentine's like, then he monologues again, and he's like, yeah, so I've been using their brains to fix my ship, to regenerate it. The Doctor's like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then Valentine's like, I was going to use you as my final brain, Doctor, because you have such a good brain. But I think it's more poetic to use Hannah instead. And the Doctor's like, no. And then he's like, I'll trade you the ultimate power in the universe for Hannah. And Nicholas is like, yeah, right. And the Doctor's like, he talks to Turlo and he's like, you need to take the almanac out of here. Its power is too great.
I know. Its powers of just being a random collection of information.
About cricket.
Yeah. The real reason why he's saying that, though, is like, we actually skipped over it, but he put the Ace of Hearts into the book.
Yeah, so he, yeah, we didn't explain this very well. The end of part 3, the Doctor's getting chased by the same spirits that chased Carteret, and he discovers that it's because of the playing card has sort of like a
homing beacon.
A homing beacon that that also it latches onto your DNA so that the spirits can chase you down.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Valentine always wore gloves.
And the Doctor removed the previous DNA on the Ace, which was Carteret's. They found it on Carteret's body. So you find out the Doctor has hidden the Ace in the book. So when Nicholas Valentine takes the book, he touches the Ace, and the Doctor's like, "Ha, guess what?" And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "You just touched the genetic pricker thing."
No. I didn't get this, to be perfectly honest. How and why does Hannah sacrifice herself?
Because she has nothing left to live for, I guess.
Yeah, maybe it was always supposed to be a suicide mission. Like, her parents were dead, so she has nothing to live for, which is kind of, it's backwards in a way when you think about it. Mm-hmm. It's usually if your child is dead, you have nothing to live for, but whatever.
And she also, like, she's rallying the, like, collective brain force to overpower Valentine, so I guess she needs to, like, stay for that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, was it like her mind was, like, exhausted in the process or something? I honestly didn't understand.
Yeah, she dies.
Yeah, she does die, yes, but...
So, rip Hannah, I guess.
Yeah. And then they all just go home. The end. Man, that was weird. Imagine, like, being burned at the stake for telling anyone about this. Like, you're gossiping about it in the pub, and, like, next thing you know, you're on trial or something, like, for consorting with the devil. Actually, we didn't mention this, but Valentine was, like, thought to be someone who, like, communicated with demons. Maybe this would just be like, you're talking about this later on at the Diablo Club, and people are just like, all right, you're crazy, like, just sit down, whatever. Like, no one believes it.
I mean, pretty much. They at the end, they offer a Holywell membership into the Diablo Club. And the story ends on the most, like, anticlimactic line. It ends on the doctor going, maybe you should stick to Snap.
Yeah, and Turlo actually has that very poorly delivered line, too, in part 4, which I think you remembered exactly what it was, but I didn't.
Because I wrote it down. When Turlo's, like, captured in the brain thing, he says the following line, delivered exactly how I'm about to deliver it. Doctor, look out, he's got the place rigged for self-defense.
Hell yeah, Mark Strickson.
Hell yeah.
Like, I think we talked about this before we started recording, so I'm going to bring it up here. And if we talked about it after we started recording, apologies. But Mark Strickson is actually the first companion to reprise his role in Big Finish.
Yeah, we talked about that off recording.
Yeah, you're right. What you said was right. Is like he wouldn't be your first guess.
Yeah, I said this, like, off recording. I was like, if you had asked me to guess which companion would be the first to reprise their role on, for Big Finish, I don't think Turlo would be anywhere in my top, like, 5.
Nah.
But, here we are. And next week we get Perry, another one who I wouldn't think was in my top 5, but,
Turlo is the one Classic Who companion who doesn't really need Big Finish. You know what I mean? Like, he was the only one who
he had a complete, like, arc.
Yeah, the only one who did. But, Perry may have gotten shafted on the main show, but that actually just makes her appearances...
Yeah, fate worse than death. Marrying...
King Yakarnos.
King Yakarnos.
But, maybe her appearances in audios make up for that.
I mean, hopefully. Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. We're going to find out.
Yeah. Well, so that's Phantasmagoria, a solid story, just basically a Classic Who, just a solid Classic Who style story. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it more than Sirens of Time. Wouldn't say I loved it, but I liked it more than Sirens of Time.
Yeah, it wasn't as ambitious, and it was better for that. Like, it was a more contained story. It wasn't multi-doctor. It wasn't... Sirens of Time kind of felt like, a big special in comparison. Versus this just felt like a Classic Who story. I've actually said this before, but for some reason I neglected to mention it last week, is like, I'm not a big fan of multi-doctor stories.
I'm a fan of them when they're good.
Too many of them are just basically too far up their own ass. Sirens of Time actually avoided that for the most part, but like, yeah, a lot of the new Who ones are very lore-y, you know. Like whatever, I always forget what it's called, but the one where the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor meet and they're trapped in that room, like
yeah. I like multi-Doctor stories when they do something interesting with it, because you can do interesting things with it, because you can have these characters meet who like otherwise would never meet, and they're like the same incarnation of the different incarnations of the same person. Like you can do a lot of really interesting stuff with it, but just so many of them end up just being like, they end up being stories that don't like justify the inclusion of multiple Doctors, I guess.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Which is, you know,
it's unfortunate, and it's
unfortunate.
It's like doubly disappointing because you actually got your hopes up or something for like this big event that is multiple Doctors, but surprise, it actually just sucks. It's kind of like life in that way.
Oof. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just prone to self-owns, as is completely evident to anyone who's listened to more than like 3 episodes of us, so. But hey, you know what? You know, as I always say, anyone who says like, "Man, I wish I lived in like prehistoric times so I didn't have to like deal with modernity. Wish I lived in like 1702." No, you didn't. Modern plumbing and electricity is way too convenient to give up. Like, you can't go back. You could never put the toothpaste back in the tube. I guess until modern society is unsustainable anymore and we just go back to like, I don't know, hunter-gatherer days. Until then.
I also wouldn't want to live anywhere that didn't have flush toilets.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I guess we can read some actors. We actually looked up actors this week. Shocking, I know. I almost
forgot. We didn't last week, and like before we started recording, we're like, should we do it for these? Should we do Britain's 10 actors, our most famous and long-running segment for audios? And we're like, no, we shouldn't. But let's just look up some of these actors anyway, just to justify our decision not to, because they probably weren't really in anything. Lo and behold, we opened their pages, hundreds of credits. Some of them had dozens. It's like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, we were wrong. All right, I'm going to start with David Walliams.
It's probably Walliams. I don't know.
All right, okay, David Walliams, sure. Who plays Quincy Flowers and Ned Cotton. He's been in 121 things. Let me list off some of the things I recognize. Who Shot Simon Cowell? He was voice trumpet in the Teletubbies series in 2017.
Typical British children's series on acid.
Great Expectations 2012. The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian.
Oh my god, he's been in some big things.
Some music videos, Pet Shop Boys. He was in The Walking Dead. No. Waking the Dead. Excuse me, I misread that.
God. The Waking Dead.
Marple, EastEnders, Casualty, The Bill, The Strangerers.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, because I think we've talked about it on this show before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like most of the stuff I recognized.
Alrighty. Well, one of the several actors that I looked up was Jez Fielder, who played Paul Trott, who we didn't even mention, but he was like, I think he was Valentine's like assistant or something. He also played Billy Lovemore, and he played the librarian. He only has 5 roles according to IMDb, including, but not limited to, Judge Dredd, Dredd vs. Death, the 2003 video game. Dick Dixon in the 21st Century, a podcast series from last year. And I believe, let me pull up his TARDIS wiki page really quickly, because I believe he was in some other audios that IMDb obviously doesn't list. Yeah, he was in a ton of Doctor Who audios, yeah. He was in a bunch of Main Range. He was in the Fourth Doctor Adventures and a bunch of other different ones as well. He's in the Bertie Summerfield series, too. He was in Doctor Who Unbound. I don't actually know what that is, but he was in it.
David Walliams was also apparently in the God Complex. I didn't see that on his IMDb page.
Yeah, we're going to get into this, so it's actually for the best that we do our actor segment, because a lot of the Big Finish, like a lot of the more major Big Finish actors were actually in the show as well.
Yeah.
Was that all you had?
Oh, yeah. No, I also looked up Mark Gatiss. Sorry, I was investigating something related to David Walliams. Okay, Mark Gatiss, 113 acting credits. Let's see. He's in the upcoming Mission Impossible movie. Memento Mori, The League of Gentlemen, many roles in Doctor Who. Game of Thrones.
Uh-huh.
Sherlock. Coalition. The radio player from Russia with Love. Crooked House. Poirot, Sense and Sensibility, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Quatermass Experiment, Shaun of the Dead, in an uncredited voiceover role. Let's see. And those probe videos. Remember those? Those other knockoff Doctor Who things about Liz Shaw that's definitely not Liz Shaw, you know?
I think I've heard of that. I don't exactly know. Sort of like an Air Zone Solution-esque type thing.
Yeah. So that's everybody I looked up.
I had a few more. I had Jonathan Rigby, who played Carteret. We're actually going to have to do more work than we usually do for these, because IMDb doesn't list their Doctor Who credits if they did audios. But anyway, he's been in... Yeah, he was in Probe as well. Yeah, in the mid-90s.
Probe.
What does Probe stand for?
I don't know. I'll look it up while you keep reading.
All right. He was in The Bill. He was in something called Lennon Naked. Her Ways to Rome, Father Brown. The Canterville Ghost. A show from last year. Sister Boniface Mysteries. I don't know how to pronounce that name. But that was this year, and he was in it as a TV announcer and a disc jockey. Let me see if he was in any Doctor Who audios here. If Firefox would stop being dumb. Yeah, he was in Invaders from Mars and Neverland. Apparently 2 other audios, but yeah.
Okay, so Probe stands for Preternatural Research Bureau. I don't know where the O comes from.
What? What?
Yeah, the preternatural.
Yeah, preternatural. I think it just basically means it's supernatural.
Research Bureau. I don't know where the O comes from, because it's not a single O in that phrase.
Oh, yeah, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. Weird. All right, well, we have some emails.
I actually looked up 2 more people. Yeah, really went above and beyond for this.
Wow, okay. Okay, I'm going to lean back in my chair. You do what you need to do.
You can take one of them if you want, so we can do an even amount. If you want to look up, like, Stephen... Well, I read Julia Dalkin. If you want to look up Stephen Wickham. If you want, it's your choice. But anyways,
I closed all of my tabs.
Okay, I'll just do it then. So Julia Dalkin, she played Hannah. She has had a small acting career with 16 roles in total. She was in Life Support, The Glass. This isn't all of them, but Wire in the Blood, Crooked House, The Bill, Holby City, Horizon, EastEnders with a recurring role, Doctors also with a recurring role. Or no, not with a recurring role, as just random characters from 2008 to 2014. And then we also have... no, I didn't look up her Doctor Who shit. Hang on, give me a second. If she even...
Well, I looked up... Steven
okay, fine, there you go. Good luck, because he has a lot.
No, he's only got 31 acting credits.
That's a lot for
It's a lot less than 112 earlier, but
he's
anyway.
been in a lot of Doctor Who things.
Red Dwarf, Casualty, EastEnders, Doctors, The Bill, The Knock. His first acting credit actually was uncredited as first gastropod in The Twin Dilemma. Actually, no, he was an uncredited soldier in Caves of Androzani, which was before that.
Oh, yeah.
He's also been in a lot of audios. Phantasmagoria, Fires of Vulcan, Dark Flame, Red, Urban Myths, Son of the Dragon, Memories of a Tyrant, The Veiled Leopard, Seven Keys to Doomsday, which is the stage play version of this... Which is the audio version of the stage play version of Seven Keys to Doomsday. Or, yeah. Actually, no, I don't think that stage show was an adaptation of a... One of the stage shows was like an adaptation of a TV episode, but I don't think it was
like
that
the Keys
one.
of Marinus, or...
And he was also in a bunch of Bernice Summerfield audios, a Sarah Jane Smith audio, and a bunch of the Gallifrey audios, and an Iris Wildtime audio. There you go. Done.
Hell yeah.
Is it now time to read emails?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, we got an email from JB Anderton. Hey guys, my ears perked up when I heard at the end of your last podcast that you were going to start reviewing the main range of Big Finish audios. If you happen to be looking for guest reviewers, I'd like to put myself up for the Mutant Phase, one of my favorites from the early audios. I recommend taking a look at the timescales.com, which contains the fan reviews of all the audios. Like what you've been doing recently, perhaps you can read a couple of reviews at the end of each episode. We've yet to record our review of Legend of the Sea Devils as Sean was on vacation this week. I can't say that I have been able to raise my expectations or even my interest in the current series all throughout Flux and the two recent specials. I had high hopes for Jodie when she started, and I thought her first series stood up on its own, especially as there are virtually no nods to the series past. It wasn't perfect, but I felt it was a good starting point and hoped the series would grow from there. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and my emotional involvement with the program, for lack of a better term, has become virtually non-existent, hence the name of my current Doctor Who podcast. Until I know more about what RTD has planned, I'm content with just watching classic episodes on Pitbox and maybe digging through my box sets of the first 5 series of Modern Who. And since you're about to start Big Finish reviews, perhaps I'll take another listen to the audios I have on my iPod. Looking forward to hearing your reviews. JB, now living in New Orleans, Louisiana. Yeah, thanks for reaching out, JB. Really nice to hear from you. We'd love to have you on for the Mutant Phase, but we're probably not going to get to it for some number of months at the rate we're going, especially since we'll go on hiatus from Trust Your Doctor for a hot second to finish UFO. We were thinking about like just skipping ahead to the Mutant Phase so that we could get you into this grouping, but I was looking and it appears to be the third part of a trilogy of stories, the first one of which is like number 8. So
what, number 8 in the main range?
Yeah, they're not the trilogy of stories is not consecutively released. Yeah.
If you're listening to this, JB, I'm going to send you a DM on Twitter in a couple minutes to kind of figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, we'd love to have
I'm
you
also
on.
looking, I pulled up the timescales, and yeah, this site is really good. They have, there's just in-depth user reviews for audios, and seemingly more than audios, it looks like. Let me check really quick. Yeah, they have the TV show as well. Oh my god, yeah, people are writing like full essays, like there's just full-length essays on like Black Orchid here. I'm surprised I've never heard of this site.
Yeah, me too. Wow.
Yeah, it's basically just dedicated to Doctor Who with user reviews.
Well, we'll include it in the show notes. For everybody at home who didn't know about it, like us.
And I actually, Yeah, we should make our like our once yearly IMDb like reads just a thing, but we can actually take them seriously and read some reviews from this site. Maybe not, though. The reviews are long, so we'll figure it out. But like, yeah, they're not just like super quick, dumb IMDb reviews. They're actually like legit reviews. So we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out off air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but thanks for the recommendations, JB, and like Keon said, he'll be reaching out to you for to figure out everything. Then we also have an email from Steven. Hey guys, I'll probably share thoughts on the first few audios we're covering in some future email. In the meantime, there's plenty to bring up. I'm very excited by the announcement of the Fugitive Doctor Adventures and Call Me Master each getting a pair of box sets, just further reinforcing that Big Finish Doctor Who is generally better than televised Doctor Who. Well, is it better? We haven't listened to those box sets yet. Just means they're doing stuff with it. Anyway, that's nitpicking. My excitement is comparable to when the 9th Doctor Adventures were announced. I figured the Fugitive Doctor series would happen at some point, given that Big Finish not so subtly tweeted asking people how they'd feel about it, but I was genuinely surprised how soon it was announced. They tend to wait until after an era is finished for these things. There are no release dates for either of these yet, which makes me think they'll probably get them sometime after the centenary special, probably closer to the 60th anniversary special. I'm also curious to see whether we get a Dan and Yaz series set in that gap during Flux, which I honestly think is probably my least favorite New Who season, but still like how it leaves gaps like that for Big Finish. In your Legend of the Sea Devils episode, I was surprised you didn't think of the Silurians when trying to think of alternate names for the Sea Devils. I know you perceive the special as filler, but were many people really expecting much of importance from a Doctor Who Easter special? Most of the specials aren't really that important apart from maybe a speech toward the end. As far as Easter specials go, I enjoyed it more than Planet of the Dead, but it's not as good as the hilarious and genuinely unironically fun, well-acted and well-written Love and Monsters. Wow, this email is just filled with controversial opinions. Given how Tegan's departure during the 5th Doctor era was full of harsh feelings against the Doctor, it'll be interesting seeing how she talks to the Doctor now and how closure might be achieved. Apparently, Ace met the 13th Doctor in a book called Doctor Who at Childhood's End, written by Sophie Aldred herself and even narrated by her in audiobook. Yeah, it's not one for subtle. This is reader's comment, not one for subtlety. You should check the acronym that gets made from at Childhood's End. But the dialogue in the preview makes it seem like this book will be ignored. I still want to check out this book at some point regardless, maybe back-to-back with Childhood's End so I can then watch the miniseries, finally listen to the inevitable episodes on that. There's also a Big Finish box set announced titled 10th Doctor Classic Companions, in which 10 meets Ace. Writer Roy Gill has heavily hinted that having read at Childhood's End, he kept that in mind while writing the audio story, that 7 is not the last Doctor whom Ace has encountered. Also, imagine if Russell T Davies brought back Gallifrey somehow. Cheers, Stephen.
He's going to do it.
And he's definitely going to bring back Gallifrey, right? Right? That's like the one toy box of Doctor Who lore that Russell T hasn't played with because he was the one who destroyed Gallifrey first.
Yeah, he's definitely going to do it. As for, like, Legend of the Sea Devils not being that consequential, I think maybe I was just surprised because, like, I agree that, like, when the specials are, like, themed around the holiday, like, the Christmas specials that are themed around Christmas are obviously, like, you go into that and you're like, this is obviously just basically, like, a side thing. You know, it's like, it's not going to be that important type thing. But, like, this wasn't really themed around Easter. You know, it was just its own episode. It just happened to be the Easter special, so I kind of was expecting more to it, especially it being a second to last episode of the 13th Doctor. So that's kind of why, I guess. Also, like, I didn't even remember that it was an Easter special. Like, Easter is so, like, not on my radar whatsoever that, like, I didn't even remember.
I think it's a much, like, rarer holiday than Christmas. Christmas, you know, started as a Christian holiday, but has grown beyond that, whereas Easter, I think, is still, like, heavily associated with...
if you're not
with a Christianity.
Christian, you don't celebrate Easter, basically. Which is why I don't. And also, like, Christmas is more religious in the UK than it is here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thanks for the email, Stephen.
Yeah, thanks for the email, Stephen. Thanks for the email, JB. Thanks, everybody, for reaching out. Keon, do we have any social media comments?
We do not.
Okay. You can email us at thedoctorofdecorative.vegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on... Who knows? What's next? Whispers of Terror, I think. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you find podcasts. I Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Strickson on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook, I'll Strickson on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time, we're going to be listening to Whispers of Terror, but until then, the end.